You wake up in the middle of the night and you need to go. So you do what you have always done without thinking about it once. You walk a few steps in the dark, close a door, sit down on a clean piece of shaped porcelain, and afterward you reach for a soft roll of paper that was manufactured in a factory, shipped across a country, and placed within arm's reach of you, specifically so that this exact moment would be easy. Then you press a lever and the entire problem disappears forever, and you never think about it again. Now take all of that away: the door, the porcelain, the paper, the lever. Take away the building. Take away the concept of a room. You're standing in an open landscape 100,000 years ago. It is cold. It is dark. Something out there hunts at night, and your body is telling you that this cannot wait. What do you actually do? Because your ancestors faced this exact moment several times a day, every single day, for hundreds of thousands of years. And the way they solved it turns out to be far more clever, far more dangerous, and honestly, far more disgusting than you are ready for. Quick thing before we get into it. A like and a subscribe genuinely help a small channel like this one keep going. It is free, and it makes more of a difference than you would think. All right, back to the dark. Let's start with the part almost nobody considers because it changes everything about how this worked. For a hunter-gatherer, going to the bathroom was not a private annoyance. It was a security problem. Think about what your body leaves behind. It is warm. It carries your scent. And out there, scent is information. A predator that has learned what humans smell like now knows 3 things. It did not know a minute ago: that you exist, roughly where you are, and how recently you passed through. To a cave hyena working a valley at night, a fresh human trace is a signpost with an arrow on it. So this was never as simple as stepping away from the fire. Your ancestors had to think about it. And the evidence suggests they did. Modern hunter-gatherer groups that anthropologists have studied tend to follow surprisingly consistent rules. You go away from camp. You go downwind. You go away from the water you drink. And crucially, you cover it, or you go where it will not sit. None of that is squeamishness. Every one of those rules is either hiding you from something with a nose or keeping something out of the water that would kill you. And that last one deserves a pause, because it is the single most underrated reason your ancestors survived at all. Here is a fact that has killed more humans than every predator on Earth combined, and it has nothing to do with teeth. When human waste gets into human drinking water, people die. That is the whole mechanism behind cholera, behind dysentery, behind typhoid. It is one of the deadliest patterns in our entire history, and it has wiped out more people than lions, bears, hyenas, and wolves put together by an enormous margin. Now, our ancestors did not know about bacteria. They had no idea what a microbe was. But they were not stupid, and they were watching. Over thousands of years, groups that happened to go far from the stream and downhill from camp simply lost fewer people. Groups that did not got sick and vanished. Nobody wrote the rule down. Nobody explained the reason. The rule just survived because the people who followed it survived. That is one of the oldest safety systems humanity ever built, and it was running long before anyone could explain a single thing about why it worked. And here is where being nomadic turns into a superpower. A small band of hunter-gatherers walks. They follow the herds, the seasons, the water. They are rarely in one place long enough for their own waste to become a problem, because they simply leave, and the world quietly cleans up behind them. Rain, soil, insects, time. Which brings us to the twist nobody expects. The moment humans stopped moving, this became a catastrophe. When we invented farming and started staying in one place, we built the first villages and then the first towns. And for the first time in the history of our species, thousands of people were living, eating, drinking, and going to the bathroom in the same square kilometer, year after year, on top of their own waste. The archaeology of early settlements is, frankly, grim reading. Parasite loads went up. Gut disease became normal. Studies of ancient remains show early farmers were often shorter, sicker, and more infested with worms than the hunter-gatherers who came before them. Read that again, because it is the opposite of everything you were taught. Going to the bathroom in the woods as a wandering band was healthier than what came after. The caveman had the better system. Civilization is what broke it, and we then spent about 10,000 years inventing sewers to fix a problem we created for ourselves. All right, you have been patient. Let's answer the question you actually clicked on. There was no paper. Paper as we know it is a Chinese invention, and using it for this purpose is only about 1,000 years old, which in the story of our species is basically yesterday afternoon. So for hundreds of thousands of years, humans reached for whatever the local world offered. And what they reached for depended entirely on where they lived. Leaves. Obviously leaves. Big, soft, broad ones. And here is the part that matters. Your ancestors knew exactly which plants. Because getting that wrong has consequences you do not want, and a group that learned the hard way, which leaf ruins your week, would absolutely pass that knowledge on. That is real, practical, hard-won information, sitting quietly in the same mental library that held which berry is safe and which root is medicine. Moss. Soft, absorbent, everywhere in cold climates. If you watch the video I made about how ancient humans healed their wounds, you already know moss was doing a lot of heavy lifting in the ancient world. Snow, in the far north, which sounds horrifying and is apparently extremely effective. Smooth stones, just worn, rounded pebbles from a river, used, discarded, and honestly, one of the most common answers across the whole ancient world. Grass, animal fur, corn cobs, much later, seashells in coastal places, sand, even, in some rivers and coastal regions, simply water and your own left hand, which is why in a large part of the world there is still a strong cultural rule about which hand you eat with and which hand you do not. That custom is thousands of years old, and it exists for a specific hygienic reason. And then there is Rome, because Rome is too good to leave out. The Romans, with their engineering and their aqueducts and their marble, used a sponge on a stick. It sat in a channel of running water in a public toilet. You used it, you rinsed it, and you put it back. For the next person. Yes. That is the same civilization that built roads still in use today. Now, the Roman detail I actually love is not the sponge. It is the room. Roman public toilets were long benches with rows of holes and no walls between them. You sat next to your neighbor and you talked. Going to the bathroom was a social activity, out loud in a group, and nobody thought that was odd. Which tells you something worth sitting with. The idea that this is a private, shameful, behind-a-locked-door activity is not human nature. It is a recent cultural invention. For most of our history, we did it together, near each other, in the open, and nobody cared. But let's go back to that hunter-gatherer in the dark, because there is one last thing, and it is the thing this channel is really about. You're not going out there alone. If you're sick, if you're weak, if it is night and something is hunting, someone goes with you. Someone stands watch. This is not sentimental speculation. It is how small human groups function everywhere we have observed them. A person alone, crouched, distracted, in the dark, is the single most vulnerable a human being can be. And your ancestors understood that perfectly well. So the group covered for each other, for something so ordinary and so unglamorous that no one ever writes it down. That is the pattern. Every time I go looking into how ancient humans handled some basic, unremarkable part of being alive, I find the same answer underneath. They knew things they could not explain. They passed those things down, and they did not do any of it alone. So the next time you close a door, reach for a roll of paper, and press a lever without a single thought, remember what that moment used to cost. A walk into the dark. A careful choice of ground, downwind and far from the water. A handful of leaves that you had better have identified correctly, and someone standing nearby, watching the grass, so that you could survive something as unremarkable as needing to go. If that landed for you, stick around, because we keep digging into the strange, brilliant, faintly ridiculous things your ancestors actually did to survive. Subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.